seems to be somebody's, it's like too many cooks in the kitchen spoiling the soup. How could you know what's reliable or not? I mean, what plumb line, what scale, what standard would you use? I mean, the only way I would know to do it is if God Himself came down and said, oh, okay, this is crap, this is crap, no, this is legit. Here, right here. No, that's crap, crap. Okay, I said that. Okay, I said that, I said that. You see what I'm getting at? I'm being kind of humorous, but how do you know? How would you know? I mean, I would be skeptical if I knew that 15% of the Bible had been tampered with, and we also don't have the originals, the autographa. We don't have originals of any of them. In fact, we probably don't even have fifth or sixth or 10th generation copies. The earliest copy I know of is probably like in the 2nd century, and that's just a little chunk like that. All of our copies are many, many generations beyond the originals. Given all of the facts, I'm not going to ask you, but given all of the facts that I know, I find the whole thing completely unreliable, and I can't get behind any of it. And so that's my take. I mean, back to the resurrection. I know we've gone like on a big loop, but that's my take on the resurrection. It is a piece, but check it out. It's a piece of the gospel story enveloped, given to us from these documents. And I don't find these documents remotely reliable except as historical documents. And in the case of Paul, I think Paul was sincere, but I think he was deluded in believing in a mythical Jesus at all, because I believe he believed in a mythical Jesus. So I grant Paul a certain veracity, if you know what I mean, because he was writing letters, and I think he was writing really what he believed. But the Gospels I don't put in that same category. So that was one thing. Oh, how much time have we got? Oh, we got a little more time. What else do you want to say? I wanted to show you another piece of fiction in the book of Acts, if you didn't mind. But I want you to say some more stuff. If you have something that you want to rebut or whatever.
Yeah, well, I actually wanted
Whatever.
to, just comment briefly on, the question that you posed basically to me, which is, how do we know which parts of the gospel are original if we find all of these interpolated sections of the gospel? Well, my answer would be, basically just by examining the text through textual criticism. We know certain parts of the Gospels are added later because we don't find them in the other manuscripts, but we know that certain parts are reliable because we find them in some of the earliest manuscripts. We don't know exactly for sure, but we don't know exactly for sure for any work of the ancient world. For example, the earliest manuscripts we have for Tacitus' works, date from the Middle Ages, and he wrote back in the 1st, 2nd century. So I don't think the criteria here that we have to have original manuscripts and we have to know for sure which texts are reliable and which aren't, gosh. Anyway, I think that criteria is simply worthless. I think it's really special pleading, as many apologists would point out when the argument's put forth. We can know which parts are reliable just by study through textual criticism. And we won't ever know for sure unless we have the original manuscripts, but that means we don't know for sure about any work of history. And therefore we got to throw all of history out if we're to use that simple argument against the Gospels and say that we should throw out the Gospels because of that. And that's just my take on that question that you posed to me. So I think you have something
So
to say.
if the Bible isn't reliable, then nothing is.
Uh, you know, in a way, I tend to agree that um, not having an original does not mean that we have to throw it completely out. I would agree with that. But it also means that we can't be entirely sure that the copy we have is going to match the original. But I think we could be relatively sure if we had, some early copies and mini copies, and they all kind of were very, very close. And if they only strayed, like in some spelling or maybe a sentence or two, that would be one thing. But that's not what we have in the Gospels. And see, that's my point. Bart Ehrman misquoting Jesus. I'm going to say it again. Bart Ehrman was a Christian. He went in to study Christianity, and when he studied it for 20 years, and he learned under some eminent scholars showing him the ropes, he came out an agnostic because he realized that he could not trust the New Testament documents because they had been so altered and so changed and so edited that they were rendered unreliable. And that's even without talking about the deliberate fiction that I'm proposing heaped onto it, which it changes your view. There's another good book I want to recommend, Dennis R. MacDonald, The Homeric Epics and the Gospel of Mark. This guy, he's going to change New Testament studies. He's claiming that Mark used the Odyssey and the Iliad to create some of the stories in his gospel. And also he's got another one examining the Acts of Andrew, which is a similar thing. That author is taking pre-existing stories from Homer, recasting them. And I wanted to leave you, or we can keep going. I love to talk about this stuff, but I don't want to talk your ear off. But I had one example in Acts of deliberate fiction. Now, whether it's convincing you today or whether you want to check it out later, I don't know. But I find it pretty convincing. But check this out. In Acts chapter 20, you might remember the story. Remember when Paul is in the upper room and he's preaching, and there's other people there, and there's a young boy in the window, and he falls asleep because Paul's boring him to death. And then he falls, because he's in the third story window, he falls out and lands on the ground. And it's a bit unclear whether he dies or not, but I think the intention was that he died, but that Paul raised him from the dead. But I'm not really clear on that, because it's not clear in the way it's written. But that's neither here nor there. And then when Paul reaches him, he says his soul is still in him. And the boy is not dead. And they take care of him when the sun comes up the next day. Now, that's in